Welcome to Round 5 of the FIDE World Blitz Chess Championship 2024, held in New York. We have a thrilling matchup between Magnus Carlsen, the World Blitz champion with an astounding 2890 ELO rating, and Sam Shankland, a seasoned Grandmaster with a rating of 2657. Carlsen is known for his ability to convert the smallest of advantages, while Shankland is a strong and resilient player. Let's dive into this high-stakes clash and see how the drama unfolds. Magnus begins with pawn to c4, the English opening, a versatile and strategic opening that allows for control over the center and flexibility in development. Shankland responds symmetrically with pawn to g6, preparing to fianchetto his bishop and challenge white's center in a hyper-modern style. Magnus continues with pawn to g3, solidifying his control over the light squares and preparing to fianchetto his own bishop. Shankland plays bishop to g7, completing his fianchetto and placing the bishop on a powerful diagonal. Magnus develops his bishop to g2, matching Shankland's setup and reinforcing control of the central squares. Shankland develops his knight to f6, targeting the central e4 square and preparing to castle. Magnus brings his knight to c3, increasing his influence over the d5 and e4 squares. Shankland castles kingside, bringing his king to safety and preparing to connect his rooks. Magnus follows up with knight to f3, aiming to strengthen his control over the center and facilitate quick development. Shankland plays pawn to c5, striking in the center and signaling the possibility of transitioning into a Grünfeld or Benoni structure. Magnus immediately pushes pawn to d4, seizing more central space and opening lines for his pieces. Shankland responds with pawn to d5, contesting the center and establishing a dynamic pawn structure. Magnus exchanges pawns with pawn takes d5. Shankland recaptures with knight takes d5, maintaining a strong presence in the center. Magnus castles kingside, bringing his king to safety and activating his rook. Shankland develops his knight to c6, putting pressure on white's central pawns and improving his coordination. Magnus exchanges knights with knight takes d5. Shankland recaptures with queen takes d5, centralizing his queen. Magnus plays bishop to e3, attacking the black queen and developing with tempo. Shankland responds with pawn to cx-d4, opening the c-file for his rook. Magnus recaptures with knight takes d4, keeping the center solid and maintaining his strong piece activity. Shankland plays queen to c4, targeting the loose pawn on e2 and creating threats. Magnus defends with pawn to b3, challenging the black queen and solidifying his pawn structure. Shankland retreats his queen to a6, keeping it active and eyeing the queenside. Magnus exchanges knights with knight takes c6. Shankland recaptures with pawn takes c6, improving his pawn structure and opening the b-file for his rook. Magnus develops his rook to c1, targeting the weak c6 pawn and taking control of the open file. Shankland grabs a pawn with queen takes a2, but this exposes his queen to potential attacks. Magnus activates his rook with rook to c6, creating threats on the queenside and targeting black's weaknesses. Shankland plays bishop to b7, defending the pawn and completing his development. Magnus doubles his rooks with rook to c7, intensifying the pressure. Shankland exchanges bishops with bishop takes g2, eliminating a key attacking piece. Magnus recaptures with king takes g2, keeping his position active. Shankland plays bishop to f6, improving his coordination and defending critical squares. Magnus pushes bishop to h6, threatening to disrupt black's coordination. Shankland counters with rook to d8, centralizing his rook and preparing for exchanges. Magnus plays queen to c2, bringing his queen to an active square and pressuring the black king. Shankland exchanges queens with queen takes c2. Magnus recaptures with rook takes c2, maintaining control of the c-file. Shankland brings his rook to c8, challenging white's control of the file. Magnus doubles his rooks with rook to c1, keeping the pressure alive. Shankland exchanges rooks with rook takes c2. Magnus recaptures with rook takes c2, leaving him with an active rook on the second rank. Shankland develops his bishop to g7, preparing to regroup his pieces. Magnus plays bishop to e3, repositioning his bishop to a more active square. Shankland advances pawn to a6, creating space for his pieces and preparing to activate his rook. Magnus responds with rook to c6, continuing to pressure black's weaknesses. Shankland plays rook to a8, defending the pawn and stabilizing his position. Magnus advances pawn to b4, expanding on the queen side and creating potential passed pawns. Shankland responds with pawn to e6, aiming to activate his king and challenge white's center. Magnus brings his bishop to b6, targeting the a5 square. Shankland retreats his bishop to f8, preparing to defend. Magnus plays bishop to a5, attacking the black rook and controlling key squares. Shankland retreats his rook to b8, keeping it safe. Magnus shifts his rook to c4, preparing to swing it to the king side. Shankland develops his bishop to e7, completing his coordination. Magnus activates his king with king to f3, bringing it closer to the center. Shankland mirrors with king to f8, ensuring his king remains active. Magnus continues with king to e3, aiming for central domination. Shankland moves his king to e8, staying solid. Magnus pushes pawn to e4, opening the center for his pieces. Shankland counters with king to d7, keeping his king active. Magnus follows with pawn to f4, creating space and preparing for a pawn break. Shankland pushes pawn to e5, challenging the center. Magnus locks the pawns with pawn to f5, creating a static structure. The players shuffle their pieces, probing for weaknesses, but neither side finds a breakthrough. Eventually, they agree to a draw after a hard-fought and balanced battle. This game was a fantastic demonstration of balanced play, with Magnus Carlsen and Sam Shankland showing their deep understanding of positional and tactical chess. Magnus pressed with his dynamic pawn play and active rooks, while Shankland defended resourcefully. In the end, neither side could create decisive chances, and the game ended in a well-deserved draw. What a display of high-class chess!